Okay, welcome back, AB. Can you hear me now clearly? So we will.
Yes, I can hear you.
All right, thank you so much. So welcome everyone. I'm so glad and excited about this session. So let me just start by saying thank you for showing up. Thank you for showing up. And it's not just about this session, but for showing up for yourself, because in the end, I think we want to be better. We want to push ourselves. We want to like achieve everything we have the capacity to achieve, or everything that we feel that we are made for. So thank you for showing up for yourself. Now let me quickly say here that this is part one of a deeply personal and transformative two-part career makeover series. It's titled Triggered but Transforming: Triggers, Trauma, and Career Growth. Now, let's be clear. This is not therapy. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. But I believe that this session will be deeply therapeutic for your career, because um, even going through the research, reading about what I'm going to share with you today was deeply therapeutic for me. And I assure you, it will be therapeutic for you, even though it's not therapy. So the reason is because we are going to talk about something most professional spaces don't give us room to explore, you know. So what happens when unspoken pain shapes how we show up at work? What happens when unspoken pain shapes how we show up at work? I think, okay, let me just admit some people coming in. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. I'm not saying. Sorry, just give me 2 minutes or 30 seconds. All right, so I asked a question. I said, what happens when unspoken pain shapes how we show up at work? So I'm going to give you like a bit of a scenario or foundation of how this session came about. You know, a few weeks ago, I shared a post about a moment that caught me off guard. Now, I was watching a movie, and out of nowhere, I just found myself crying. What was the storyline? A father, you know, destroyed everything he loved, his family, because he decided to believe a lie. He was carrying the weight of that lie that he believed. Now, it was subtle, it was painful, and it reminded me that unprocessed pain doesn't go away just because we become professionals. It doesn't disappear when we get a job or title or LinkedIn endorsements or awards or recognition, whatever. It doesn't disappear. We carry it in the way we communicate daily, in the way we lead, in the way we respond to feedback, the way that we shrink or overcompensate in professional spaces. The workplace isn't a vacuum. The workplace isn't a vacuum. It's a stage where our inner stories often play out, maybe quietly, but consistently, and sometimes destructively. And that is why we're here today. That is why we're here today. So, because your career success is not just about your talent or your skill. I think many of us know that already. It's about self-awareness. It's about emotional clarity. It's about it's about healing so that you can lead and grow from the right place, from the very right place of being whole. So whether you're a fresh graduate or trying to find your footing or a seasoned professional leading a team, this conversation is for you. So let's go. Whew. Let's dive in. Let's dive in. Let's dive in. So welcome to Triggered but Transforming. Welcome, Yakong. Glad to have you. So let's
Good
move
evening.
on. Good evening. You are right on time. So, why does this topic matter? Why are we here today discussing triggers and trauma? Why does it matter? So, we will begin with a truth we don't say out loud. We often don't say out loud enough in professional spaces. And that is emotional pain doesn't stay at home. It doesn't. It really doesn't stay at home. It dresses up in our blazers, in our dresses, and work IDs and joins us in our meetings. It sits silently in performance reviews. It walks into the workplace with us, whether we acknowledge it or not. Emotional pain, trauma goes with us everywhere we go, even into our workplaces. And for so long, we've been taught to compartmentalize, like be professional, don't take things personally, leave your emotions at the door. I have even said things like that in the past. I've been like, leave your leave you leave your personal issues at home. When you get to work, face your job. I have said that in the past, but being more mature, growing has exposed me to the fact that we can't actually leave our emotions out in the workplace. It goes with us. Because I've realized that the reality is that pain doesn't recognize professional boundaries. It doesn't. Unhealed wounds leak into how we show up in leadership, how we navigate difficult conversations, how we handle correction or criticism, how we take feedback, and even how we advocate, or fail to advocate for ourselves, for others. The challenge now is that most of these things happens unconsciously. It happens unconsciously. So let me ask you something to drive home what I'm trying to say. Have you ever reacted intensely to something at work and only realized later that your reaction wasn't really about the situation? If it has happened to you, just give me a thumbs up, or if you can unmute and say yes. If you don't want to answer, ask yours. Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Because maybe someone gave you feedback, and then you suddenly feel like you are being attacked, or maybe your voice shook in a meeting and you don't really understand why. You want to speak and you're just trembling. You don't understand why. Or maybe a colleague's tone reminded you of a past hurt, and suddenly you were no longer just in the meeting. You were reliving something deeply personal. Now, that is not an overreaction, because we may say it is an overreaction, but it isn't. It is actually a revelation. It reveals that there's a story beneath the surface. It reveals a memory, a wound, a belief, a strong belief shaping how you experience work. And this doesn't make you unprofessional. It doesn't. What it makes you is human. This only means that you are human. Unhealed pain becomes unconscious behavior. Let that sink in. Unhealed pain becomes unconscious behavior. It starts to write scripts in our head. scripts that shape how we interpret people, how we see things, how we interpret power, how we experience pressure and praise. And that is why this conversation matters. That is why it is important to have conversations like this, because the more we become aware of these inner patterns, the more power we gain to rewrite them. So this isn't just about emotional well-being, it is about career clarity, leadership maturity, and personal alignment. So today we are choosing to look inward, not as a detour from growth, but as a very foundation of growth. This is where transformation begins. This is where transformation begins. Um, okay, so my trigger moments. This is a personal reflection. My trigger moments. Um, so let me just quickly share something that surprised me even more. I've said it in the beginning. I said it a few weeks ago that I watched a movie, and I just broke down crying, and that thing really it made me um sit down to reflect. You know how I was just watching the movie, and suddenly I was no longer watching a fictional story anymore. I was feeling something real. I cried, not just for the characters, but for myself. For all the moments that I felt unseen, unheard, that I've had to prove myself to people I looked up to or trusted. And then I realized that the pain did not stay in the past. It shaped how I've shown up in rooms where I felt, it shaped how I've shown up in rooms. It shaped how I've reacted to people. It shaped how I've taken feedback. It has shaped me. So, what did I do? What did I decide to do with it? Now, this brings me to the red model, my framework for personal and professional transformation. Let me not just go in deep into what I felt and how I feel. I'm just going to go right into it. Today we are focusing on R for rationale. What is rationale? Rationale is the internal story we tell ourselves. This red model, if you have followed me or if you have been listening to me for a while, is a model I came up with, and it's just a structure I use to put things in perspective and move. So I'm just going to give you the red model in practice right now. Rationale is the internal story we tell ourselves. It is a lens through which we see, through which we interpret situations. It is what we believe about our identity, our value, and what we think we deserve. So when we carry unhealed experiences, whether from family, from past jobs, from our childhood, whatever, we don't leave them at the office door when we get to work. They shape our communication, our leadership style, our boundaries, our career choices, shapes everything about us. So I'm going to give you an example. If you ever felt small or insignificant, you might now begin to overcompensate, working twice as hard to feel heard or to feel like you're enough. Or you might then shrink in meetings, assuming your voice doesn't carry weight, assuming what you have to say doesn't matter. That is your rationale at work. That is your rationale at work. So here's a moment of truth telling. I want you to pause and reflect. This webinar is all about you. Pause and reflect. I have some templates I'm going to share with you too that you would use that has prompts that will allow you carry out this exercise. I'm going to share them after the webinar. So I want you to pause and reflect right now. Can you recall a time at work where you felt misjudged, you felt dismissed, you felt deeply hurt? I'm sure we would have felt like that at work. So we're going to take it a step further now. In that moment, what did you start to believe about yourself? In that moment that you felt judged, that you felt dismissed, that you felt hurt, what did you start to believe about yourself? Write it down. Write it down where you are, honestly, without judgment. Just write the truth. It could be something like, I'm not good enough. You may feel like it could be something like that. It could be that I'm never taken seriously. Or it could be, people always overlook me. It could be something like that. Let it out. Write it out and let it out. Because the truth is that naming your challenge or your whatever it is the first step to reframing it. And reframing it helps you, empowers you. Reframing it empowers you. So right now, we're not we're not about performance, but about permission. That is what I'm giving you right now, to be true to yourself, be truthful, write it out. Because if you don't examine the rationale driving your choices, the reason why you do what you do, you will end up repeating patterns that keep you stuck. And you, my friend, were not made to be stuck. So take one quiet moment and reflect and write. Reflect and write. So let's visualize how we see our sorry, let's shift how we visualize our professional lives. Imagine your career as a tall, well-dressed tree. You can see it on your screen. So above the ground, everyone sees your credentials. Everyone sees your LinkedIn profile, your presentation, your performance. They see the branches, your visible behaviors, how you show up in meetings, how hard you work, how confidently or not, how you speak, how you dress, and how you look in the outward. But underneath the surface are the roots, as you can see on your screen. And those roots tell a deeper, often hidden story. They hold our earliest experiences. They carry your childhood memories, your traumas, your victories, your failures, everything about you. They store the words that people have said to you in the past and the silences that shaped you even more. So the thing is, when those roots include unhealed pain, especially pain you've never had space or the language to express or process, it doesn't just sit quietly in the background. It reshapes the tree. It affects how you grow. It bends your branches in certain directions, some beautiful, but others distorted by survival. So, what does that look like at work? Let me give you examples I see every day in high performing professionals. Overcompensating to prove worth. You take on more than you should. You struggle to rest. You attach your identity to how much you produce or how much you deliver. Because somewhere deep down inside, you truly believe that you are only valuable if you are doing something. The second thing is that you are shrinking to avoid conflicts. Now, you have great ideas, but you hesitate to share them. The third is that you are performing instead of owning your value. You project a curated version of yourself, polished, filtered, likable. Like you create an image. That is what many people are doing in the name of personal branding. That is outside in branding. You curate a version of yourself that is polished, that is perfect, because you're not so sure about your authentic self. You're not sure that you will be accepted in professional spaces just the way you are. Now, does any of this sound familiar to you? Thank you. Thank you. These aren't, they are not random behaviors. They are rooted in stories. They are rooted in stories, many of which we didn't choose, because we didn't choose the family we come from. We did not choose to be born in Nigeria. We did not choose to be born at this time. But these are stories that we continue to carry. And that is why I talk so much about inside out branding. Inside out branding. Because the truth is that until we are honest about, what is inside, what is underground, what is under, like, our roots, until we are honest about our roots, we keep trying to fix the fruits without addressing the roots. And this is what I have learned. Unhealed stories don't just impact our confidence, they limit our career trajectory, they limit how far we can go professionally. So I want you to invite you to yet another moment of personal reflection. What is the one story you might still be carrying into your professional identity? It might be a moment where someone made you feel invisible at work, or a pattern where you're only rewarded when you performed, or a belief that you are never the one who gets picked. Whatever it is, whatever your story is, name it. Because naming your story gives you power over it. Naming your story gives you power over it. And owning your truth is the first step toward rewriting your future. Don't forget, we're talking about growth. We're talking about how to move from our pain, how to move past our pain and achieve, how to move past our pain and become. So here's a very short affirmation I want you to say right now. My story does not disqualify me, it deepens me. My story does not disqualify me, it deepens me. I am safe to grow beyond survival. I am safe to grow beyond survival. I am ready to lead from wholeness, not from wounds. I am ready to lead from wholeness and not from wounds. Thank you. So as we move forward, I want you to hold that reframe close. Hold it close. This is actually not about fixing yourself. It is about freeing yourself, because your inner narrative shifts your outer. Because your inner narrative shifts how you are inside. The way you are inside will actually determine your outward being. So hold on to that refrain. Believe that you are more than that pain. Believe that you are more than that pain. Let's. So from pain to power. From pain to power. Now we have arrived at a turning point. You have identified your pain. If you haven't, please do. You have identified your pain. We have spent time actually reflecting on that hurt, on your background stories, some that you've buried so deep inside that you have even forgotten that they exist, but you are still living by the rules that pain set for you. This is your moment to shift, because we may not be able to edit our past. We may not be able to do anything about what happened to us in our past, but we have the power to rewrite our, our future, our present, and influence our future. So this is where the second part of the red model comes in. E for execution. Execution is where reflection meets responsibility. You have reflected, right? You have done the background work, you have reflected, you have thought deeply about what pain you are holding on to. You have thought deeply about what you have gone through in your past. Now we are moving on to the second stage, which is execution, and this is where that reflection meets responsibility. So it is about moving from emotional reactivity to intentional action. It is not about healing. I keep saying that it's not about healing. It is about harnessing the inner strength that you have. So it is where you begin to live out a different story, not in theory, but in practice. So let's try something together. I call it a reframe. So I want you to go back to that moment that you reflected on earlier, the wound that left you questioning your value, your voice, your ability, who you are. And I want you to complete this sentence with me. That experience tried to define me, but it taught me to fill in the blank, fill in the blank. Take a deep breath and fill in the blank. Now, maybe it taught you to show empathy for others who suffer silently because you have been there. Or it taught you how to fight for your voice. Or it taught you how to set better boundaries. Fill in the blank. Or maybe it is still teaching you how to love yourself through the growth. So, whatever your sentence is, write it down. Write it down. Let it sit in your spirit. Because this is how transformation becomes tangible. Not by erasing the pain, but by repurposing it, by turning it around, reframing the pain. So you're not pretending that it didn't happen, but you're refusing to let it have the final say. Because when you act from a healed place, even if it's just partial healing, you reclaim your voice. You reclaim who you are. You stop performing and you start embodying your power. This is execution. This is branding from inside out. This is what I believe. This is what it means to be a branded employee, whole, honest, and purpose driven, and authentic, true to yourself. So let's take a moment to write that reframe. I think I also have a template for this. I'm going to send it out to you after the session so you can go through it and it will help you. It will help you. So, what are the key takeaways? What are key takeaways? What are key takeaways from this very short session today? I'm summarizing. Because remember that this is a two-part series, and because I don't want it to be so long, I broke it down into part one and part two. And part one we is what we have dealt with today. So I want to tell you that you have done something brave by looking inwards and identifying your pain, naming it, and reframing it. You've done something brave. You've chosen to pause, to look inwards, to ask yourself why certain things trigger you, why you react so harshly to certain things. And you've taken time to identify how your past may be speaking through your present. So, in this part of Triggered but Transforming, we explored emotional triggers, not as signs of weakness, but as signals, as sacred signals. We confronted how our unhealed stories, we confronted those unhealed stories, those inner scripts we didn't write, but dictating to us, but that those rules, inner rules that we were living by, those things that shaped how we showed up at work, how they affect our communication, our leadership, our confidence, even how we sit in meetings, how we relate to our colleagues, or even how we relate to our boss, for instance, how we speak up in rooms we've already earned the right to be in. We shrink, we sit down, we don't. So this inner pain, we have identified them. So today we began with the red model. We touched on rationale, which is the why behind the reaction, the roots, the story beneath the story, the story beneath the story. And we delved into execution. So in this place, we went through our first act of healing, which is naming, reframing, and choosing a new path from a place of self-awareness. Are you aware? Now that you are aware of this pain, now that you are aware of why you are reacting the way you are reacting, what the next step is to reframe, which we did in the execution stage. But we're not stopping there. There is a third part of the story, a very powerful one, a deeply powerful part of the story, and it's called denouement. Many of us may not be familiar with the word denouement, but it is a fancy term, is a fancy literary term. The denouement is part of the story. It's the part of the story where everything comes together, where it all makes sense, where the loose end gets tied. Now, the character doesn't just survive. You are the character. You don't just survive, you become. And that is what part 2 of this session is all about. I think someone just came in. Sorry. I want to see. Okay, so that is where um we discuss the denouement in part 2. So what are we going to be doing in part 2? What are we going to be doing in the second session? The second part is titled Becoming Whole at Work. We have identified our pain, we have reframed it. So now we are going to reclaim our identity and professional power, because healing isn't the end of the story, actually. It is the beginning of a new story, the beginning of a new you. So we are going to explore what it means to own your story without being owned by it. Whoa, sorry. Without being owned by it, and how to build a career that flows from peace, not perfection. So if today felt like an awakening for you, part 2 will be your homecoming. If today felt like an awakening for you, part 2 will be your homecoming. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for showing up. And know that your healing is not just personal, it is professional. It is your power, and you are stepping into it. It is your power, and you are stepping into it. So I'm going to go. We had some questions before. I know some of us may have questions. If you have questions, you can raise your hand. But I have some questions that some participants sent to me that I felt I think I should address. If you have a question, thank you all. If you have a question, you can go ahead and ask, but I'm going to deal with some questions now. Where is the question? Okay. So I'm going to quickly move since I'm not hearing any questions. So the first question here that I have is, how do I bring value without over functioning or outperforming myself? This is a question for a participant, and I hope you are here. All right. So I feel this is a very important question, especially for high achievers who learn to equate worth and performance, or worth with performance. They feel that their worth is directly tied to how they perform. But the truth is, value is not volume. You bring value when your contribution is intentional and aligned with your thoughts, and they are sustainable. Overfunctioning often stems from a fear of not being enough. If you were here from the beginning, it's part of your roots. That fear of not being enough. So because that fear pushes you to go over and beyond all the time, because you're trying to gain approval, not just deliver excellence. You are trying to perform. So the first step to releasing yourself from this stronghold, I call it a stronghold, is self-awareness. You need to ask yourself, is this excellence or is this exhaustion? Because sometimes we tell ourselves that you want excellence, but ask yourself, is that what it is, or is it exhaustion? The next thing is that you should clarify what success actually looks like in your role at work. What does success actually looks like? Not just what it feels like. What does it look like in your role? Ask yourself that question. And then set boundaries around your energy, not your time. What do I mean by set boundaries around your energy, not your time? What do I mean by that? Now, um, when you set boundaries just around your time, it looks like there I have I'm having a meeting, or I'm undertaking a project, and then somebody comes in and say, please help me do this. That is your time. You say no. Or please join this meeting. We are going to have this meeting now. You say no. That is your time. You're not going to spend time doing that. But are you still going to be emotionally involved in that meeting? Now, you know what they are going to discuss in the meeting. You're not in the meeting, though, but your mind is, this guy, he did not do this. You are still being troubled or worried about what it is that meeting is about, or what it is that person is wanted you to do. You're still worried about it. That is what I mean by set boundaries around your energy, not your time. You need to tell yourself that if this is not worth it, I'm not going to spend any any of my mind's processing power in this particular issue. Learn to delegate, and just delegate and leave it. Pause, ask yourself, am I doing this because it is expected? Just because it is expected, or because I'm trying to prove something? You don't need to bleed to be brilliant. Sustainable value is born from clarity, not overexhaustion. Be clear about the goal of something. Don't over push yourself because you are trying to meet that need of not being enough. You're trying to meet that need of not being enough. So this is my advice to you. Ask yourself, really, what does it look like? What does success look like in that role? Thank you. And the second question here is, how can I continue advancing my career without sacrificing my mental well-being? Mhm. How can I continue advancing my career without sacrificing my mental well-being? Now, you start with redefining advancement. Someone is just going to, sorry, let me add. You start with redefining what advancement means to you. Is it just titles? Is it timelines? Or is it alignment? Is it fulfillment? Because career growth and well-being should not be on opposite ends. They should not be on opposite sides at all. But the system often teaches us that when you're growing, that progress requires self-neglect, that you should neglect yourself, you should just push every time, you just have to, don't sleep, just be working, just be working. But it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. So these are some things that you can replace yourself with purpose. Understand or know that growth is not always vertical. It is not always upwards, facing upwards. Sometimes a strategic move is a lateral one. You are changing positions. It could be that. So say no to opportunities, even though they seem good, but they come at the expense of your emotional health. Advocate for your needs. Someone is trying to join. Okay. Advocate for your needs. The key to own your path is don't climb a ladder that leads away from your well-being. Don't climb a ladder that leads away from your well-being.